During the Great Hunger, the first people that came to our aid were the Native Americans. And I read now a poem by Chief Tecumseh, a Shawnee chief. So live your life that the fear of death can never enter your heart. Trouble no one about the religion. Respect others in their view and demand that they respect yours. Love your life, perfect your life, beautify all things in your life. Seek to make your life long and its purpose in the service of your people. Prepare a noble death song for the day when you go over the great divide. Always give a word or a sign or salute when meeting or passing a friend, even a stranger, when in a lonely place. Show respect to all people and grovel to none. When you arise in the morning, give thanks for the food and for the joy of living. If you see no reason for giving thanks, the fault lies only in yourself. Abuse no one and no thing, for abuse turns the wise ones to fools and robs the spirit of its vision. And when it comes your time to die, be not like those whose hearts are filled with the fear of death, so that when their time comes, they weep and pray for a little more time to live, their lives over again and in a different way. No, sing your death song and die like a hero going home. At the beginning, Matt played that beautiful gathering of friends written in the 1700s. We gather today for our friend, for our brother, and we pray for him and send our best wishes and thoughts and prayers to his family.
A Hodja, a comrade, or as a clan. It's on a more to event showing you a couple of brief here our Óglach Brendan Bik McFarlane. I'm very honoured to be asked to say a few words about Óglach Brendan McFarlane, who was, amongst many other things, a lifelong Irish Republican activist. Ardús, but while Machovrion a Yanu Lalina, Ban Keela, agus a Pasha Thomas, Emma, August Tina. I want to begin by offering our deepest sympathy to Brendan's beloved wife Lena and their children Thomas, Emma and Tina, also to his brother Gerard, sister Marion, sister-in-law Angela, brother-in-law Gerard and his nieces and nephews. Our struggle has lost a leader and I've lost a close friend and comrade, and I say that knowing that he was a close friend to many others standing here today and those who aren't here. But Brendan's family has suffered the biggest loss of all. They have lost a loving, caring husband, a father, a brother, and an uncle. I was there that night, Bick, then known as Stephen. Don't ask me why, didn't want to be known. When he met Lena in a jazz club called La Huchette in Paris. Now, how romantic is that? Obviously, the Republican leadership didn't send us over there to check out the jazz clubs of Europe. But even hard-working Irish Republican activists need a wee bit of music now and again. Bick had great hands for playing a mean guitar, but 2 left feet when it came to dancing. But he did make the effort that night. That was April the 17th, 1984, and it must have been love at first sight because Lena remembered the exact date. In fact, I think she remembered the exact time. Love certainly blossomed, and I was very happy for Bick. It may have been karma or destiny, but I only found out from Lena herself on Sunday there, that a month or so earlier, Lena had sold off her house in Denmark and headed to America on a tourist visa, hoping maybe to remain there a wee bit longer. The American Immigration Control must have been reading her mail. She was arrested on arrival and unceremoniously deported back to Denmark. I think she lasted 4 hours in the USA. Having no job at home, she headed to Paris, looking for Bik for the summer and in hope of work. And thinking back to Bik's experiences before mainland Europe, he really deserved the life he had with Lena then and later in Ireland. Bik was born in 1951 and reared in Ardoyne. In 1969, feeling he had a calling to be a priest, he entered a seminary in Wales. He was still a teenager and loved all types of music, from pop music like Simon and Garfunkel, Free, Badfinger, to folk and traditional music, to a love of classical music, which he inherited from his mother, Murray. However, he was also witnessing what was happening at home in the media. He did not come from a traditional Republican family, a bit like myself, but he felt compelled to return home to his community in Ardoyne. He found the rise of the civil rights movement and the Orange State's attempts to crush it with violence and imprisonment. He witnessed thousands of Catholics being driven from their homes. He watched the British Army on TV in Derry. And closer to home in Ardoyne and wider North Belfast, loyalist death squads were killing so many people. For Bik, the question was how he could best oppose the naked sectarianism, the supremacism, the discrimination and the brutality of the Unionist regime and its RUC, and the British government and its military forces. He was determined to defend his community. He decided, as many others did at the time, that armed resistance was the only way to face an occupying military force, and he was not going to leave it to others. Bik was sworn into the Irish Republican Army, and he always did, and he did as he always did, he gave it his all. The early to mid-1970s were the darkest years, with the fatalities and the casualties of the conflict, especially in North Belfast. He was arrested in 1975 and was given a series of life sentences, imprisoned in the cages of Long Cache Camp, which contained hundreds of political prisoners, a status which had been achieved by a hunger strike in 1972. For Bik, the struggle continued in jail, and his focus was on escaping to return to the struggle. Bik and his comrades Larry Marley and Pat McGill tried to escape from Cage 11 in 1978, but were caught. Their status as political prisoners was removed, and they were transferred to the notorious Hates Blocks, where a protest, which became known as the Blanket Protest, had been ongoing since 1976 against the British removal of political status in both the Hates Blocks of Long Cache and Armagh Women's Prison. All three immediately joined their comrades on protest. It was a regime based on brutality, which went on for 5 years. Free association was not allowed, no right to exercise in the yard, no right to use the toilet facilities or showers, or to family visits, or to receive letters. Prisoners faced constant beatings from warders. They lived naked in terrifying, nightmarish conditions. Bik's leadership qualities were legendary in the face of such inhumanity. Shana Walsh, a good friend of his, fellow comrade, recalls his first encounter with Bik as he was transferred to the punishment block, where Bik, Larry and Pat had been sent after capture. He heard Bik conversing with warders in a very normal way, which was extraordinary in the circumstances. That night, Bik shared his watchword with Shana: "It's nice to be nice." Bik appeared to have their meeting out of his hand. He met Bik a second time when they were put into the same wing. Bik had a dozen stitches above his right eye, having decided to chastise 5 warders who were brutalising a young comrade. There was a steel and a courage within Bik, which he only used when necessary. In the end, the prisoners felt the only option to them after 5 years of protesting was a hunger strike. And it took place in 1980, when the political prisoners neared death. The British administration offered terms and promises, but when the strike was ended, the Brits reneged, forcing a second mass hunger strike in 1981. Bobby Sands was the OC, the officer commanding of the protesting prisoners, and was to join the hunger strike as its leader. He told Bik that he wanted him to take over as OC. The leadership outside ratified that decision. The hunger strikers were taking on the might of the British government and the huge burden of responsibility of leading the protest, and representing the hunger strikers fell for the most part on Bik's shoulders. Margaret Thatcher described the hunger strike as the IRA's lost card. Instead, it became recognised as an historic watershed, a seminal decision which would change the dynamics of the struggle for Irish independence. Bik was not alone, of course, but he was pivotal and his leadership ability unquestionable. It was an amazing feat for any person in the face of the magnitude of governmental power trying to undermine the integrity of the prisoners' struggle, and also through them the integrity of the overall struggle outside the walls of the prison. Bik visited the hunger strikes as often as he could and witnessed their individual deteriorating health. Pat Sheehan spoke of his solidarity and compassion. He was on hunger strike as well, and actually nearing death, remembering how he would sit holding Pat's hand as they talked together. Bobby Sands and Bik were also very close, and Bik, speaking later about the final meeting with Bobby, then blind, said it was heartbreaking. He said, "We were more than blanket men. We were brothers." 10 brave men lost their lives on the hunger strike. It devastated their loved ones and their friends and fellow prisoners. But the political prisoners did what Republicans always do. They asked themselves, where do we go now from here in our struggle? How do we answer the terrible loss of our friends and comrades? Bik was again core to this strategic discussion, along with Bobby Story, his comrade Bobby Story and friend, and Larry Marley. The plan was for a mass escape. There were, of course, other crucial individuals at the core of this audacious and risky move, both inside and outside the jail. Some of them will be standing here today, but unfortunately, they still can't be named. They wouldn't allow me, at least publicly. The slogan during the protest years was "Smash the Hate Blocks," and what better way to do that than to break out of what they call the most secure prison in Europe. Just 2 years later, on the 25th of September 1983, 38 Irish political prisoners broke out of the Hate Block 7. Although 19 of the 38 were recaptured in the days following the escape, which was the biggest in British penal history, it still sent shockwaves through the British government and was worldwide news. A group of the escapees, led by Bik and his friend Seamus Michael Wayne, did a long 5-day off-road trek across countryside after being and were picked up by members of the IRA's South Armagh Brigade. They had only some water and minimal food during that time. Bik and I spent some months in active service around the Leitrim and South Armagh along the border, and were then asked early in 1984 to go to France, where we rented a flat. Bik was easy to get on with. He was very fastidious, as everybody knows, and not a bad cook, whereas I was, let's say, a touch less so. I remember the times we would be away for a long journey and arrive back late and tired. Bik would empty all his pockets one at a time and set their contents in a neat row before folding up his clothes. I, on the other hand, would already be in bed and asleep around the time he emptied the first packet. Although I had known Bik from the mid-70s in the cages, it was during the escape and its aftermath that we became close friends, a friendship which has endured. We relocated to Holland after a couple of mishaps and were eventually arrested along with Blue Kelly in a dramatic middle-of-the-night raid with some special unit crashing in through the patio windows, throwing thunder flashes and armed to the teeth. Frankly, it was a relief when I realised they were shouting at us in Dutch as opposed to English. It became obvious from the court case that the main interest from the British was to get Bik and myself extradited back to Belfast, so Blue, lucky enough, was simply deported without charge. Bik and I were held in separate jails and extradited back to Belfast in December 1986. I was in Crumlin Road Jail on remand on 7 charges connected to the escape, as the Dutch court had refused to extradite me on my original charges in England from 1973. Bik was less fortunate, and he was sent back to the H blocks to continue his life sentences. He was immediately classified as a Category A maximum security prisoner or Red Book prisoner. It meant that he would not be in any single wing for more than 3 weeks at any time, and the constant shifting did not allow for Red Book prisoners to settle into any routine. It was very disorientating and difficult to have relationships with comrades if you were getting shifted so often. While it was claimed that it was for security reasons, it was clear that it was a vindictive punishment for those who had dared to humiliate a political and penal administration by escaping. I joined Bik in the blocks in 1988 again and was released in June 1989. Bik was later wasn't released until 1997. Lena and Bik had continued their relationship throughout his imprisonment, despite the obvious privations. And during those years of imprisonment, Bik continued his education formally and informally. His determination was always that jail time should be used positively. His love of music was always a part of that, and he was to use that to great effect in jail and then upon release. He had long since learned that military action on its own would not achieve a united Ireland, and the Republicans needed to be active in every aspect of the community. He knew that Republicans had to learn from the past, but act in the context of the present. He knew that the hunger strike opened up elections as another leg to the Republican strategy, and had supported dropping the abstention policy in the 26 counties in 1986. In 1997, when released, he threw himself into local politics and community work. He supported the negotiations and the Good Friday Agreement and used his influence, his very strong influence, talking to others, sometimes cynical activists. He was a huge part of getting me elected as an MLA for North Belfast in 1998 and took up the job as Óglach Counter Chair. He had no interest in becoming an elected representative, but was a driving force in North Belfast in increasing our vote election upon election. However, his many trials and tribulations did not stop on his release. In 1998, he was again arrested in the south of Ireland and charged with the unlawful imprisonment and possession of a firearm from 15 years earlier. Bik got bail but faced uncertainty over a 10-year period. He had to report to Dublin Special Criminal Courts 40 times over that period. The case against him finally collapsed. Bik and Lena were together throughout and living in Belfast. Bik, as everyone knows, was a great people person who made friends easily. He attended many functions and get-togethers, but he always included Lena. There was a mutual trust and respect they had from the start, and they were well matched. He always prioritised his family and still managed to travel the length and breadth of Ireland, talking to Republican activists, and indeed creating more Republican activists. Bobby Sands wrote in his diary, "Everyone, Republican or otherwise, has his own particular part to play in this struggle. No part is greater than another. No part is too great or too small. No one is too old or too young to do something." Bik's role epitomised those sentiments. He sought no glory. He was content in the background, distributing unpublished Republican news, canvassing, giving out leaflets, travelling Ireland or abroad to talk about the hunger strike, working with the Bobby Sands Trust or the National Graves Association, or setting up speaking equipment for functions or rallies. I'm beginning to wonder where he got his time for the family, but he was a busy boy. He was an extremely talented musician and loved to entertain revellers on Rebel Sunday in the Rock Bar or in the Felons or PD clubs. Now in 2025, we are closer than ever to undoing the injustice of partition and reuniting our country. The Orange State has gone forever. Orange domination is gone, and thankfully our young men and women no longer feel that they have to risk their lives and liberty on active service. Irish unity, of course, will not just happen. We need to make it happen, working together by continuing to put our shoulders to the wheel as Bik did all his life, we will finish the task ahead. We will achieve a united Ireland, a new republic where the rights and identity of all people living on this island, or whatever persuasion or background, will be welcomed and cherished. That Háide will be the most fitting tribute we can give to our friend and comrade, Óglach Brendan Bik McFarlane. You will have your own stories, of course, of Bik, many, many of them. No doubt this afternoon and evening, the sadness and the happy memories will be shared in celebrating a life that was well lived. There will never be the likes, there might even be a bit of loose talk. Bik did great things in his life, sometimes very difficult things, courageous things, but through it all, he was always a gentleman in its truest sense. He was always grounded, and Lena was his anam cara, his soul friend. He was an ordinary man who lived through extraordinary challenges and rose to each and every challenge with intelligence, determination and strength and compassion in equal measure. He never gave up. Over the past few days, huge numbers of people have sympathised about Bik, and the most used term was that he was a legend, and of course, legends live on. Their memories never die. He will be sadly missed by many, many people, but most of all by his wife Lena, his children Thomas, Emma and Tina, and the rest of his loving family. Slán ar gara agus ar comrade. Ní bhéad a lichid oration.